This video is brought to you by SkillShare. Hi, I'm MICHAELJOSH, and you're watching GadgetMatch. For this video, I thought maybe we could do something different. How about some story time? Now, I don't usually like to talk about my family. I keep that part private, but for the sake of this video, I will. I grew up poor. My parents made enough to get by, but we didn't have a lot to spend on life's luxuries. Right now, I'm incredibly grateful to be in a place where I can afford to buy myself nice things, and that because of the nature of my job, I don't have to spend on what would have been my biggest expense, my biggest obsession, technology. Now, why am I telling you this? That's because I want you to know that I understand the value of money. I understand that the majority of us have to work hard in order to be able to get it. Even if sometimes I can so easily recommend a $1,000 phone without even batting an eyelash, as if money grew on trees. But I really do get it. That's the reason why I wanted to become a YouTuber, so that I could use my platform to champion technology being accessible to all. Because good, life-changing tech shouldn't just be for the rich. That is why I've said in so many videos that price is as important a factor as other great features. That is why I started to flinch when phone prices started to creep closer and then cross that $1,000 price tag. That is why my heart started to break when brands like OnePlus also began to follow suit. That is why my battle cry this year has been, we need a hero to carry on the torch of this abandoned cause. We need a flagship killer, one that is excellent at all the important stuff, and one that more people can afford. And you know what, folks? I think it's this phone right here. This is our OnePlus North review. Over the last few weeks of using the OnePlus North, I've been trying to wrap my head around some sort of classification for this phone. My initial instinct is to call it a flagship killer, but many of you are quick to point out, how can it be called a flagship killer if it doesn't contain a flagship processor? I disagree, but let's agree to park that discussion for now. Whatever you want to call it, this phone was built with the sole purpose of delivering a flagship experience for less. Frankly though, to be able to price a phone below $500, concessions need to be made, and that's fine, but what can you actually cut so that users don't feel that they're compromising? Okay, let's play a game. Get a sheet of paper and draw two columns, one for non-negotiables and the other for optionals. I want to hear yours, so pause this video and then write your answers in the comments section below. I'll wait. Finished? Okay, for me, my non-negotiables are 5 things. 1, the phone must be built well and needs to look good. 2, it should have enough performance power to handle games and multitasking without stuttering. 3, solid battery life that can last me a full day of moderate to heavy use. 4, it should be able to take great photos and videos during the day and at night. And 5, it should have intuitive software, easy to use, and well thought out tools to get things done. How close is your list to mine? Did I miss anything? They're probably on my list of optionals, things that might be essential to some people depending on their lifestyle, but not to other folks. They may include a display with a fast refresh rate, 90 Hz or faster, fast wireless charging, a headphone jack, a micro SD card slot, not just water resistance, but an actual IP rating, and availability of case options. Does the OnePlus North deliver on my essentials? What about the optionals? And what things did it cut in order to get to its fabulous price point? Stick with me and we'll find out in this video, or if you'd like, jump to the chapter by using the chapter markers below. One more thing, if you love in-depth tech reviews, then please do consider subscribing to this YouTube channel and hit that bell notification. We'd love to have you on board as a Matchketeer, and together we can get to our next goal of 1 million subscribers. Good design isn't just about looking good. It's also about being built well, and the OnePlus Nord is both, passing my two-part test. Sight and touch. It's pretty to look at, and this teal color is dope AF. It feels good in the hands too, a nice balance of weight and soft curves. I did make a tiny boo-boo though in my unboxing video, referring to the phone's frame as aluminum instead of plastic.
MJ, it's not aluminum. It's not aluminium either. It's plastic.
You're right, Saf. They had me fooled. It's either that or I didn't read the reviewer's guide properly, but to be fooled is a good thing, no? Would I rather this phone have a sturdier frame? You betcha. Does that mean the phone is less durable? Perhaps, but I'd argue that a phone's most sensitive part is its glass front and back, which are expensive to replace, and most flagships have glass front and backs. That said, if this is one of the things that you can cut to save costs, I'm all for it. What do you think, Saf, since you're here anyway?
I totally agree with you, MJ. Considering the price point that this is coming in at, also the fact that you get a case out of the box, it's really not a big deal. Either slap on this case or get another case and you'll be absolutely fine.
Thanks, Saf. That's a really good point, and I really appreciate that OnePlus releases a new set of cases every time they launch a new phone. Because let's face it, if a phone isn't from Samsung or Apple, third-party cases are hard to come by. I might even go as far as saying case availability is as, if not more important than a phone's finish, especially since most folks slap on a case the day they buy their phone. In fact, I did a poll on Twitter, and an overwhelming amount of you, about 70%, said they use a case. I love the selection that's available for the OnePlus Nord, including sandstone cases in black and Nord blue, a clear bumper case to show off this lovely color, and creator cases with designs from Zach of Jerry Rig Everything, Finsta, and Camilla Engström. I get why specs are important. The phone is only as good as the hardware that's working behind the scenes to get the job done. But it's 2020, and technology has far exceeded the needs of everyday smartphone users. Which is why I keep saying we all need to take a chill pill when it comes to saying the bigger, the faster spec, the better, especially when it comes to processors. This, oh, if it's not Snapdragon 865, I'm out mentality really needs to stop, folks. Because truly, the experience speaks for itself. In the 2 weeks that I used the OnePlus Nord as a daily driver, I never really felt I was using a mid-range phone, even if it indeed runs a mid-range processor. Games ran smooth, jumping from one app to another and then another was lag-free. It helps that OnePlus has always been known for its speedy Oxygen OS, and the fact that the phone has a 90Hz display. All of that combined subconsciously ticks that box in my head, telling me that my phone is fast and powerful. It's also shaving at least $100 from the phone's price tag. The OnePlus Nord packs a 4,115 mAh battery, which consistently lasted me a full day of average use. Some days I'll wake up the next morning with a little bit left over. That's with a combination of LTE and Wi-Fi, the 90Hz display turned on, brightness turned up to 75%, and battery saver turned off. On top of that, the OnePlus Nord also supports OnePlus's incredibly speedy 30-watt warp charger, which gets you to 54% in 30 minutes, and 100% in just a smidgen over an hour. Where cuts were made in this category is in terms of wireless charging. Like the OnePlus 8, the OnePlus Nord does not have wireless charging built in, which is a bit of a bummer considering wireless warp charge is insanely fast. Fast enough for it to finally matter. That said, let me know if you disagree. in 2020, I am still of the belief that most people will happily live without wireless charging. And that's a concession that I am also willing to make. If you'll notice, I didn't say great cameras, I said great photos and videos. And while we're on the topic, can I just say, for the record, that we don't really need 4 or 5 cameras on a smartphone, especially if those cameras are just dedicated depth sensors, color temperature sensors, or a macro camera that doesn't do its job. Don't these extra cameras cost more? Maybe it's just me, but would you rather have 5 cameras or a cheaper price tag? I personally am fine with 3 cameras. Give me a standard lens, a telephoto lens, and an ultra-wide angle camera, and I'll be happy. But I'd even argue that the average user might not even need that many. Oh wait, I think I just shot myself in the foot here. The OnePlus North has 4 cameras. The first is a 48 megapixel wide angle sensor, the same one that's on the pricier OnePlus 8, and boldly described as a camera fit for a flagship. And there is an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera with a 119-degree field of view. They could have stopped there, but there are 2 more cameras. A 2 megapixel macro camera and a 5 megapixel depth camera. And let me start with those 2 first. Now, I've never really been a megapixel whore, but who really wants a low-res macro photo? And if we're talking about macros, it's about being able to get in close to a subject so that you can capture as much detail as possible. That's just not the case here. Take a look at a macro of a coin shot using the OnePlus North, and then compare it with a proper macro taken on the new Vivo X50 Pro, and then compare it with a 2x zoom shot taken on an iPhone 11 Pro Max, and a 5x zoom shot taken on a Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. And finally, a 2x zoom shot taken using the digital zoom function on the OnePlus North. Here's my honest take. Everyday users don't need a dedicated macro lens. They can use their telephoto camera for that. And if you really want to put a macro lens on your smartphone, then do it well. Otherwise, it's an extra cost that I shouldn't have to pay for. I'm not done. There's also a dedicated depth sensor. I might just be ignorant here, but I don't know why dedicated depth sensors are still a thing. The iPhone, for example, uses its second camera as a dual-purpose depth sensor, and sometimes you could also just use software like Google does on the Pixel 3. It's not like the bokeh cutouts are any better. For me, depth mapping should be all about spatial awareness, so that the objects the same focal distance away get the same amount of blur. But that's just not the case. Take a look at this example, where it struggled with my mask. Here, where it didn't know which bushes to blur out. And here. Notice the grills right under Chai's arms, and how some parts are blurred, but others aren't. And then take a look at that same shot taken with the Vivo X50 Pro that also has a dedicated depth sensor. Now, I'm sorry if that came across as mean. I didn't mean to offend anyone, and it isn't necessarily a criticism on OnePlus specifically, because other phone manufacturers do this also. I think it's just worth pointing out these things as we discuss what features we can actually cut from a phone in order to bring down costs. And don't worry, my complaints stop there. Is the OnePlus North's 48 megapixel shooter a flagship camera? It sure is. I shot plenty of comparison photos over the course of these 2 weeks with many different phones, and the results can be summed up like this. The OnePlus North can go head-to-head versus the best in the biz. With the sun shining overhead and the sky blue, it's hard to tell these photos apart. When made to capture some color, the North's photo is vibrant without going overboard, and its f1.75 lens produces a creamy depth of field. Of course, it's when things go dark where it gets challenging. And surprisingly, the OnePlus North isn't phased. In this example, just after sunset, I'd say it did almost as well as the P40 Pro. And finally, in a dimly lit outdoor spot at a restaurant, this photo of me taken without night mode came out pretty good. It may not be the low light champ, but it holds its own, and does even better than the Find X2 Pro. If there are any doubts about this being a flagship camera, consider them quashed. Now, to test the limits of what this phone can do in extreme low-light situations, we set up a little dark room inside my bathroom, leaving just a tiny crack of light to come in. Here are the results. While not as good as the iPhone 11 Pro Max and the Huawei P40 Pro Plus, the OnePlus Nord stays in the running, managing to capture some color and detail despite having very little light to work with. We tried again one night with more phones this time, shooting items from my kitchen and with a tiny light source on the right. Out of the 9 phones we tested, the OnePlus Nord's photo ranked somewhere in the middle. In my book, better than the Oppo Find X2 Pro, Poco F2 Pro, and the iPhone SE, which doesn't have night mode. Its ultra-wide-angle camera isn't that bad either. It's sufficiently wide, wider even than the P40 Pro Plus and the Find X2 Pro, and does a pretty good job even in tricky situations like this backlit photo. If you zoom in to the bridge at the center of the photograph, you can still spot the Empire State Building off in the distance. And finally, when it gets dark, it's still alright. The OnePlus Nord has 2 selfie cameras, a 32-megapixel main selfie camera, and an 8-megapixel ultra-wide-angle selfie camera with a 105-degree field of view. I'm thrilled about the latter. It's the widest we've seen on a smartphone this year. One of the easiest ways to spoil the smartphone experience is bad software. Thankfully, that's not a problem here. OnePlus's Android skin, Oxygen OS, is one of the best in the biz. It's like vanilla Android with a few smart customizations built in. Let me talk about this video's sponsor, SkillShare. SkillShare is an online learning community with thousands of classes for creative and curious people. A question I often get asked is, how can I become a better YouTuber? Well, Skillshare is a great place to start, with classes ranging from creative writing to film and video to graphic design. There are even upcoming workshops on personal branding and mastering the art of Instagram. But maybe you just want to learn something new for fun. Recently, I've been using Skillshare as an activity hub, taking random classes like this one on the art of flower arrangement. Cause hey, why not? Skillshare is very affordable, less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. And the first 1,000 subscribers who click on the link in the description box will get a free 2-month trial of premium membership so that you can explore your creativity. Before we wrap up, it's time for rapid fire Q&A round. And because your questions were very similar, we're going to call this rapid fire matchups. OnePlus Nord versus OnePlus 8. I say save your money and get a OnePlus Nord, or spend a little bit more and buy the OnePlus 8 Pro for a better camera and fast wireless charging. OnePlus Nord versus iPhone SE. While the iPhone SE starts at $399, the 128GB model is more expensive than the 128GB Nord. For photos, Nord. For long-lasting battery, Nord. For the ecosystem, get the iPhone. Now on to the Snapdragon 765 showdown. OnePlus Nord versus Vivo X50 Pro. Overall, I prefer the Nord, but the X50 Pro has the more superior camera. Ask yourself, are you willing to pay an extra 200 euros more for that? Also, side note, the X50 Pro has lousy speakers. OnePlus Nord versus LG Velvet. Remember how we talked about those optionals? If you really can't live without them, then the LG Velvet has them all. Wireless charging, headphone jack, micro SD card slot, IP rating, and third-party cases. In Europe, the Velvet retails for 650 euros, so the cost of all these extras is roughly around 200 to 250. OnePlus Nord versus Poco F2 Pro. I saw some really strong opinions in the comment section of my previous video. The gist was basically the OnePlus Nord is pure hype, the Poco F2 Pro is the better deal. I listened, I paused, and then I gave these phones a second look. The Poco F2 Pro is the perfect example of a phone that does more on paper, but doesn't back it up in the real world. I can see the appeal of that more powerful processor for things like mobile gaming and that notchless display. But TBH, the OnePlus Nord oozes with sophistication. Where the Poco F2 Pro feels almost generic, it's pretty evident that a lot of thought went into the design of the OnePlus Nord. It shows. And in that all-important camera category, its camera also does a much better job, as can be seen in this example. So, is the OnePlus Nord your gadget match? Let's quickly recap the three things: non-negotiables, optionals, and cuts. All 5 non-negotiables solidly delivered. Optionals, fast display, and case options, check and check. Now, what cuts did OnePlus have to make? Not Snapdragon 865, RAM is not DDR5, plastic frame instead of aluminum, no wireless charging, no IP rating, no headphone jack, no micro SD card slot. But then, take a look at that price tag. 399 euros, or about 465 US converted. So, where does this leave us? In a perfect spot, if you ask me. For those of you who have been dreaming for an affordable smartphone that delivers on the essentials, dream no more. It's been a while since I've been able to recommend a phone with this much conviction. The OnePlus Nord is your gadget match. It's the best value for money smartphone in the market today and comes with the GadgetMatch seal of approval. It's a poetic start to a fresh new chapter, and it's great to see OnePlus zero in on its true north, because this phone is a representation of its true calling as a brand. And that was our OnePlus Nord review. For more videos like this one, you know the drill, folks. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that bell icon so that you get notified as soon as we post a new video. Follow us on social media for all the behind-the-scenes fun stuff. And as always, make GadgetMatch.com your daily habit. Until the next video, I'm MICHAELJOSH. Thanks for dropping by.